All right, welcome everybody. This is going to be a long one. So, do we close those doors? Or do we just not care? It's kind of cool. So, let's. I push play to play. Right there it goes. Cool. So my remote died. So you guys get to deal with me being tethered to the podium, which I'm sure everybody actually loves. So. This presentation is called Saving Ryan's for Privates. Yes, it's very funny. Yes, I'm very cheeky. Thank you for acknowledging that. This presentation is not going to teach you anything. I am going to tell you about nothing that you don't already know. And yet, hopefully, you're going to leave here with a different mentality on how you apply what you know and where you apply it. Going back to this for a second, I gave part of this talk at a conference that Stephanie and Wolfgang Garlick run called Securing Sexuality, which is a decidedly extremely non-technical audience. It's mostly sex workers and sex-adjacent workers. And the idea was to tell them about the threats that exist out there and how they keep getting attacked despite their best efforts. And so this conversation is very front-loaded with information on like, all right, here's all the things you know about like complex passwords and crap. And the whole audience is like, oh, and starts writing these down. I'm like, you should use a password manager, right? And they're like, what? Can you define password manager? And I was like, oh no. And so I actually spent the entire hour just talking about security basics. And so I haven't given the rest of this talk. And then also I added a bunch of slides while here. So we're gonna see how this whole thing goes. And I was like, oh, this is too technical an audience. It might not work for them. As Michael had asked me to come give this talk here. And I was like, wait a minute. The whole point of this is not the technical aspects. It's that you are not applying what you already know. And so strap in, get ready to be embarrassed. So this is me. It's a bunch of crap. You know, they tell us we have to put an intro slide in, and I'm like, nobody gives a crap who I am. This is stuff that I do. I went to music school, which is how I ended up here. Right. I do all these other things. You can scan that QR code at the top. That's going to take you to my link tree. You can find all my socials there. I'm all over the place. I do lots of cool stuff on the different social platforms. I try to keep everything separate. I do a lot of urban exploration photography on my Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm one of the leaders of the BurbSec organization. Where's BurbSec at? Wow, that's actually a lot of hands. What's that? Everyone needs to start going. I like to say, because nobody's been able to fight me, it is the largest hacker and information security meetup network in the US. If you're not in the Chicagoland area, you can still hang out with us on our Discord. It's extremely popular. It's a Discord where people actually talk, which is crazy, right? There's a little, that's what the little QR code is. That'll take you, I think it takes you to our website. I don't know, it takes you somewhere. Check it out. Scan the things that the hacker told you to scan. Other than that, I'm like, hacker is all you got to know about me. Some people will call that a technical debt collector because I come to collect on your technical debt. I prefer to be called a full stack arsonist. Anyway, that's the stuff that I do. I'm also the head of offensive security for just a gargantuan, just an insanely big global corporation whose predominant job is to make sure that you do not get killed every time you eat a meal. So that's what I do. NBD. I'm not allowed to say where that is because it's big enough that we have corporate communications. And if you say the company name, then corporate comms gets to review your slides and tell you what you can't put in. So it's not like, I have this super secret job and I can't tell you what I do. It's just that I hate corporate America. And so this is my stupid loophole for getting around that. And if you have a phone, you can very easily figure out where I work. Yeah, so that's my jam. That's what I do. Anyway, let's get into this. What we're going to be talking about here, like I said, is why the things we already know are critical. I've been finding this is a huge gap across all of humanity, even, yes, for sure, inside the information security space. We can all quote best practices and put our hands on our hips and elbows akimbo and waggle our heads and go, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. But I find it's like a relatively few number of people who can tell me why we're doing that. What are the threats? What are we defending against when you tell me to do this? And most people don't know, like I said, even in this industry. So I'm gonna just blast that to you and then I'll have fixed the problem and everything will be great and we'll live in a utopia. Yes, this conversation is going to focus on theft of extremely, extremely private information. I took the most extreme possible degree to really drive home the severity of the issue that's going on here, that is still going on and is going on worse now than it ever has been in the history of the internet. There will be no nudity in this talk, so don't worry about that. There may be some brief, frank discussions of generally sexual situations, but nothing that's, I think, would exceed like a PG rating, so you don't have to worry about that, because that's not the point. First off, let's talk about stats. Everybody loves statistics. Statistics about the theft of private information, especially like we're talking about the leaks of nudes, right? We're talking about people's nudie pictures, fun sexual stuff being stolen off of places that they thought were safe. And so it's like, well, you have to, you know, convey what the issue is and make sure the audience understands the severity. So you have to present some statistics. And the reality is that I was going to just Google some stats. So you just do that. Like, if you care, just go do that. It's, you know, come on. I'm not going to do all your homework for you. But the reality is, it's impossible to actually figure out how often this is happening because the vast majority of it falls somewhere in between. The victim doesn't know it happened, and the victim has not reported that it has happened, because where do you even report that? You know, so we don't know. All we do know is that it is very hard to come across someone, especially women, who are, let's say, over age 30, who have not had something like this happen to them. And so, you know, we're talking at least, you know, above 50th percentile, right? We all know it's a huge problem. You don't need the stats. You know it's a huge problem. Asking for stats and demanding stats to justify that this is a huge problem, I would equate to victim shaming at this point, because, come on, if you're trying to have that argument, maybe you're the problem there. And maybe you're trying to cover something up. So real quick, we're going to do a review of last week's quiz on information security best practices. I really sincerely hope you are ready for this, because I expect this crowd to actually be ready to pass this quiz. And really, this is just a quiz review. We've taken the quiz already, right? The quiz is called our daily jobs. So let's review. First off, billions of credentials are leaked and shared every year. And that's not hyperbole, this is billions. These password dumps, these password leaks, these credential leaks that come out, they often number in the billions. Facebook, LinkedIn, billions with a B. And it's hard to really convey what billions means, because our brains can't, we can't picture what a billion of anything is. It's a lot, it's 1,000 million, 1,000 millions, which we can't even picture. Vendors rarely directly inform their users of these leaks, if they even know these leaks happened, which is its own issue. And as again, this goes back to the stats. We can't really say how often this happens, because we don't know what we don't know, right? This is what the unique passwords thing protects against. We all know to use unique passwords. Why? Well, we can kind of fumble through this sentence. This is the reason. Because if that password gets out, and it does, and it will, now the only place that password can be used is the one place that you had used it. Versus what's happening is that attackers are taking these massive credential dumps, and they are spraying these credentials at every major website that's out there and seeing where else they log in. Why? Because everyone uses the same password on at least 2 different systems, on 2 different websites. And it's just insanely successful to just do that. So like, this is not hacks, right? That's not hacks. That's not even hacks with like a CKS. This is just logging in. This is just attempting to log in. And that's all they're doing. And then they're succeeding en masse because people are using reused passwords. Next up, complex passwords. Everybody's being told to use complex passwords, and generally, at least in this crowd, I can get a response to why, as it's like, well, it's harder to guess, and something cracking. Most people don't understand how password cracking works. I'm not going to give a talk on how password cracking works. This is what you need to know, at least as far as what complex passwords do. Complex passwords don't they protect you against? They don't protect you against this, right? If your password is 255 characters, and somehow every character is unique in that password or whatever, If you reuse that password on all of your websites and that password gets leaked, it's in plain text, it's real easy to just go reuse that 255, you just copy and paste it. Being complex does not protect against this. So unique and complex is important for that reason. Complex protects against cracking. Cracking can only happen offline. Cracking is where they have gotten the password hash somehow, either from the server or from intercepting your communications somehow, and they're attempting to figure out what string that is a value of. That takes a lot of computing horsepower to do, but as computing horsepower keeps increasing exponentially beyond where we thought it would finally end, the speed of cracking is increasing exponentially. Having a very complex and long password will always decrease the amount of time that cracking takes. Again, like I said, I'm not getting into how cracking works. People like to push back and be like, well, what about quantum computing? And it's like, shut up. We don't know how to like run a single application on a quantum computer yet. We have quantum computers and everybody goes, they're here, we have quantum computers, HP has one, you can rent time on it. And you know why they're renting time on it? Because nobody knows what to do with it. We haven't figured out how to actually run anything useful on it. Shut up. Like, and they're trying to make an excuse for like, why should I bother with this? Because now we have quantum computers. Just don't bother then. Just please roll over and just be a doormat. Like, come on, what are you doing? Shut up. And then like, well, complex passwords are hard. They're hard to remember. We'll just use a password manager. Show of hands, who here isn't using a password manager? Is not. Oh, that was very funny. Thank you for the clarification, Robert. There's like 8 people, their hands up, and then I clarified. And like, oh. Good work. Yeah. So I don't gotta talk about password manager. Cool. Thank you. You know what? LastPass is better than no password manager. Try it's like, what's the problem with LastPass? All their stuff got breached once. Do you think it's going to happen again? Right. I mean, I would avoid LastPass. You know, I would avoid, well, who else? Okta. I'm not going to go into this list, but like, those are all better than not doing anything for sure. Then multi-factor authentication. We all know what multi-factor authentication is. What is this protecting us against? Multi-factor authentication is, like it says, it's like having 2 different passwords, one of which changes every few seconds. So an attacker has to get both of your passwords, one of which is this, it's a little code, whatever your code generator makes. And then they have an extremely short window, hopefully, if your MFA on the back end is configured right, they have an extremely short window to punch that second password in before it's no longer valid. So even if they have stolen your password, your crappy password that they've been able to crack, and they have your password, it doesn't matter because they don't have the other one. And even if they're able to like shoulder surf it off your token generator, they have such a limited amount of time that they can punch it in that that it's great. Like MFA is the only way to go. I'm a huge proponent of what's being called passwordless authentication, where there is no passwords anymore. It's just tiny little tokens like this that last a very brief amount of time, and that's just how we should be doing things. That starts to get classist and ableist as you talk about people who aren't able to have access to the devices that generate the seeds and all that. And so I don't rail on it, but I'm very excited that this is the way that things are going. So again, multi-factor auth protects you from your own crappy passwords, but it also protects from credential leakage, reuse, even if you have a unique password and they get that password, they still can't log in because they don't have the MFA code. And so so these are I've talked about the big 3, right? These are the things everyone is supposed to know, especially at this conference. But like I said, there are a lot of people who can tell me to do these things, but they can't tell me why those things are important. Now you know why those things are important. Cool. This is where my last talk stopped at the Security Sexuality Conference, because everyone is frantically writing things down and had a lot of questions, which was incredible and beautiful, and I loved doing it. And I'm glad I taught people something, but it wasn't the talk I wanted to give. This is the talk I wanted to give. So now that we know we have all this, so say we're doing all those things. We know to do all those things. The people who are victims of these attacks know to do all these things, and they are doing those things. How the hell are they still getting these extremely private things stolen and leaked when they're doing everything right? How the hell did this happen? I'm gonna tell you. First off, perhaps the person you sent them to sucks. This is this is something that is often not considered. One, for the very understandable reason of, if you're having communications of this very private, intimate nature with your partner, you would have a level of trust established with them that would probably, you know, say like, this person is not going to just like put the things I'm sending them onto the internet. We all know that's not necessarily true. We have all turned on average boomer news and heard the phrase revenge porn, right? Like this is a reality world we live in. So that's what I call intentional leaks. Somebody just did it because that was their intention, and that's how it worked. Now, the things we don't consider, what is their cybersecurity posture? You can control your own cybersecurity posture. That is all you can control. You can advise on other people's postures. You can ask them to do things. You can tell them to do things, but you can't really force compliance unless you're like running an MDM on your partner's phone or something, and really mobile MDM still sucks. What's going on their end? Are they doing the first three things I just talked about? Do they have a complex, unique password? Are they using MFA on whatever this account is that you're transmitting this information on? Because you can be locked down as fuck, and if you're sending it to just like somebody who's practically just putting their phone on the internet and saying, have at it, you've accomplished nothing. One big problem I see that people don't think about is that you're not both using, you're both using a non-encrypted messaging system. Is your messaging encrypted? And I don't mean HTTPS. I mean end-to-end encryption. Look into whatever messaging platform you're having these delicate communications on and make sure it supports end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption is not HTTPS. End-to-end encryption means that each device generates their own keys and establishes a secure connection from device to device. And there's no, nothing in between those two devices anywhere in the cloud that can decrypt and read the contents of that message. That is exceptionally rare and exceptionally common. How is that? Lots of stuff. Apple iMessage, where they just call it Messages now. Signal, Facebook Messenger was a big one to roll it out. That was a big deal. Telegram, et cetera. Lots of these popular messaging platforms support end-to-end encryption. So you go, well, like I use one that says it supports end-to-end encryption, so I'm all set. You probably gotta turn it on. And like, that's funny, right? But the reality is they don't prompt you to turn it on. And what they do is they go, hey, we support end-to-end encryption for your safety and privacy and security. And then you go, oh, fuck yeah, cool, all set. No, you're not all set, because they don't tell you, hey, make sure you go turn it on. I have the only platform, gosh, does Signal have it enabled by default? Yes, I think that's it. Everything else, it's off by default. Apple Messages just rolled it out with the new operating system updates, and you can do that. But again, to do that, your partner also has to turn it on. You have to have both of you turning this key exchange on and all that crap. It's off by default. Another problem I see is you're not enabling message expiration. You're not allowing these messages to automatically roll off. They just sit in there forever. And the next thing you know, 6 years down the road, perhaps after you've long stopped using this platform, you forgot it exists, you forgot what you ever even used it for, somebody breaks into the old ancient database and steals all your shit out of there because you never set anything to expire. Use a platform that has message expiration. That's where it automatically deletes from all existence that messaging, those photographs, that whatever. Signal does it. A lot of platforms just have one option. It's disappearing messages, which after they're read, they're just gone. Who does that? Instagram, Snapchat. Signal, you can set different times, which is nice. You can set it to last a week, a weekend, whatever, a few hours. It's great. But please set that. You should set that regardless. Stop filling your phones up with garbage. Like, do you know how much money Apple is making selling you like a 1 terabyte iPhone now because you need it, because you have 1 terabyte of data on there, because you have drunk videos of you from 60 years ago that you will never watch logged way deep in your messages? Delete that shit. You can automatically turn it on to, like, I think the minimum that Apple does is 30 days. Turn it on. Buy a cheap, I just saved you like $400 a year just by turning that on. You're welcome. Like, please tip me. Cat ears aren't cheap. They're extremely cheap. Big pro tip. It is not possible. Was somebody clapping back there at this? It is not possible for any group chat to have end-to-end encryption. So even if you are using a messaging platform that supports end-to-end encryption and you have gone in and said, please turn this on for me. If you're participating in a chat that is between you and more than one other person, end-to-end encryption, it is not enabled because it is not possible, asterisk. It's not possible without a bunch of additional infrastructure that none of these platforms are going to manage because it's too complex for you to figure out. This is how so many of these terrorist, ransomware, et cetera, groups on Telegram, et cetera, are getting busted because, can we cover that door? Because they are thinking that, oh, we're using Telegram and I turned on encryption, so we're all set now. We can communicate, nobody can hear us because it's end-to-end encryption and the FBI or whoever can't decrypt it. If you're in a group chat, that doesn't work because of how the key exchange and sharing works. It doesn't work. So stop it. Oh, that's the wrong slide, I'm sorry. Moving on. That's the right answer. So problem number 2, you're using somebody else's computer. The hell does that mean? A lot of times you didn't know, especially if you're dealing with non-technical folks. You didn't know, you're doing it constantly, and most scenarios require it. What am I talking about? Say it again. Just the ladies. All right. Yeah, I'm talking about the cloud. And the cloud is in, like, if you are transmitting something across the internet, it's going through the cloud. And I don't mean that the internet is the cloud. I mean, it's going through somebody else's computer before it gets to the other point. Now, if you're using end-to-end encryption, sorry about that slide. If you're using end-to-end encryption, that can protect against a lot of that if the company is, in fact, implementing end-to-end encryption in the right way. So a lot of people, let's use Snapchat as an example. A lot of folks use Snapchat and they think, oh, you know what, Snapchat? It's a great way if I want to share private, intimate photographs, information, communications, whatever, because I know I can set it to where the other person sees it once and that's gone forever and it's cool and we're all set and it goes from my phone, it goes to their phone, and then we're all done, right? Very cool, very discreet, very private. That's not at all how this works whatsoever. What actually works, what actually does is it goes up to Snapchat. Snapchat's servers. Snapchat servers that log all of your communications, photographs, videos, and store them locally at Snapchat, regardless of your expiration time. Snapchat's servers do not expire your photographs or messages. In fact, any corporation that is operating a messaging app like this intentionally logs all of these things. Why? Who's got an idea? Yo. No. Good answer. That's a great guess. Follow the dollar is one of my favorite things. Subpoenas. Why? But if they get subpoenaed and they didn't have the data, they go, oh, sorry, it's deleted. They're doing it because of the PR nightmare that comes from them not having that information when the cops show up and go, hey, we are cracking down on a 67-person sex trafficking ring that's bringing children into the US and everything's operating on Snapchat. We need you to give us all these logs. And Snapchat goes, oh, we delete all that because privacy. And then the FBI goes, oh, it sounds like Snapchat supports child sex trafficking. And then that's how the news reports it. So Facebook, and they know that because that's what's happened in the past. And so now Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, et cetera, all log everything so that when the cops show up, and not just the cops, when a lawyer who has a court case that just needs that information for whatever valid reason, divorce proceedings is a real common one, they can just go right up to Snapchat and go, hey, need all those communications. And Snapchat goes, yes, sir, right here, sir. Here you go, sir. Do you need anything else, sir? Please don't take away our license to operate in the US. So yeah, that's all there. That's all there. No matter what your expiration time is, Snapchat's got your shit. And so you go, oh, well, I'm sure, in 2024, Snapchat is encrypting all of my shit. They are controlling whoever has access to my shit, and then they are auditing the people who have access to my shit, right? No, there's some creepy dude up in Snapchat who not once, but just many, many, many times has been just constantly looking at your shit. and it's funny because as they keep, you don't have to read all these. They basically just say like it's Snapchat, it's Facebook as well. This happens all over the place, and like because there has to be a mechanism in place for when the subpoenas come in that somebody can decrypt and transmit this data that is being legally requested and they're legally required to transmit, right? Yeah, somebody has to be able to do that. And like I said, what should you do when somebody does that? You should then instantly, automatically instigate an audit to see why did someone access this, and then that person should have entered into the ticket all of the, all the supporting documentation. You should be good. It should be an automated process. It is not. These companies are constantly getting busted for going years without auditing who the hell is sniffing through my pictures. So just don't trust it. I mean, possibly the epitome of using someone else's computer. Cloud storage. You're literally just putting your stuff inside of someone else's hard drive and then going, gosh, I hope nobody looks in here. Who knows the fappening? You're familiar with the fappening? Throw up a hand if you're not familiar with the fappening. Cool, good. That's cool. Good. You might just be younger than my old ass too. But around 2014, like it says, I mean, there's your description of the fappening. So what happened with the fappening was it was literally people actually calling up Apple's tech support phone line and saying, hi, give me a celebrity name. Cameron Diaz. And I have been locked out of my iCloud account. Can you help me reset the password on it? And they go, sure can, Ms. Diaz. And let us ask you a few questions about yourself to verify that you are you. And then they ask you a bunch of questions that because you are Cameron Diaz and are on the internet talking constantly, anyone could answer about you. And so this resulted in the leak of almost 500 pictures across, I don't know, like hundreds of celebrities' iCloud accounts just by doing this. Because they were storing their photographs automatically, because their phone just does this, up in the cloud on their cloud storage. And then they just socially engineered Apple's tech support into flipping the password on them. Apple has since implemented some really cool changes to prevent this from ever happening again. Good on them. Most other organizations absolutely have not done that. I'll talk more about this in a little bit, I guess. I put this slide in here yesterday. Maybe it's in a weird place. But anyway, let's talk about it real quick. Who wants a free? Here's a free Snapchat O-Day. I'm going to drop 2 O-Days in this talk that are really cool because they are the most non-technical garbage that you can imagine. And I really, really, really love that drives home the fact that O-Days don't have to be some leet hack that a team of Ukrainian rebels have been working on for 7 years and have some deep, Privesk in the Linux kernel, and it's a white paper that you can't even understand half the words of. No, when we're talking application security like this, so many, the vast majority, I would even say, are cheap garbage, are the easiest, stupidest things to not only exploit, but to find. And it's just a matter of thinking about doing things the right way. It's a matter of just coming at things with an adversarial mindset and going, okay, I'm a bad guy. How would I get around this? So Snapchat, let's say you've got Snapchat and you have somebody who sends you a picture that as soon as you view that picture, it will be gone forever. But you, being a creepy individual, would like to save that picture instead. But Snapchat, oh cool, Snapchat is a cool feature that's like if you take a screenshot, it immediately lets the other person know, right? It says, hey, creepy dude took a screenshot, go after him. So what if I want to prevent that from happening? Well, what I can do is abuse the way that applications on mobile devices are required to operate for security / these walled garden reasons. And I know that photograph has come in on Snapchat. Before I view it, what I do is I disable all communications on my phone. And I don't mean just airplane mode, because airplane mode often leaves the Wi-Fi on. Turn off any internet-based communications that phone has. Open, so when you get the notification that there's a picture in Snapchat, it's already been delivered. So disable your data, open up your Snapchat, you can view the picture, you can take a screenshot. Then what you do is just delete the app. Uninstall the app from your device. That will delete all of the pending outbound communications that it saves up, because normally you turn the data back on and it would immediately blast out, hey, screenshot. But if you uninstall the app, it deletes all the related files for that app. It deletes all the pending outbound queue for that app. That screenshot notification never gets sent. All set. You can reinstall the app too. And it just installs clean, you log back in, you got a clean app, reinstall the app, done. You have successfully stolen pictures of Snapchat. I fucking hate it. Stop using Snapchat. And that's like, you go, well, why would you tell people how to do this? You're enabling it. What I'm enabling people to do is to realize that they should stop using these things. And there's nothing Snapchat can do about this because it's not Snapchat's fault. It's the operating system's fault. And it's kind of the best way for the operating system to function too. I don't have a remediation recommendation for this because how it works is great in most cases. Again, Snapchat. It's impossible for any group chat to have end-to-end communication. If you're in a Snapchat group chat, it can't have end-to-end communication. Stop it. Going back to the Drive stuff, so it's not just a matter of like, hey, I can get your password reset on your G Drive account and access it in there. The other issue is that you're not setting proper security settings around the links that you are providing to your cloud storage. I recently have been looking at a photo studio that does boudoir photography because it's fancy. It's expensive, so it's boudoir. When they send out links to their people who have paid them to do these photo shoots and go, oh, here's your photos, please let us know which ones you'd want prints of. They're just setting the permissions on these links to be like, anyone who's got the link can view these things. And they're just relying on like, well, nobody would ever have this. You know, I'm only sending it to one person, so only one person has this link. And if the person I sent it to sends that link to somebody else, well, they meant to, so that they should allow that to happen and they should be able to access that. The reality is that there's a lot of ways to start trying to iterate through those links and find them to begin with. There's a lot of ways to accidentally find those. This Leaky AWS S3 bucket thing, if you can't see the date, this is something that this is a headline you would have seen in like 2014, 2015, 2016. This is one of my favorite hobbies, was just going through all the S3 buckets and seeing what there was to see. This one's from 2020. Late 2020. This is one of the biggest problems on the internet. Leaky AWS, everybody know what an S3 bucket is? S3 bucket it's like a Google Drive, but for whatever. It's cloud storage. And people are just setting their permissions so permissively that I can just go look in your stuff and take it. And because I'm not hacking in, there's no alerts. You have set it to allow me to just take it, and I'm just taking it, and it's a massive, massive fucking problem. Discord had this problem with leaky links. And actually fixed it just recently, which was cool. But it was basically if you generated a link in Discord, as soon as that link was generated, it was open permissions. Anybody you gave that link to could view whatever that link was, file or whatever. OnlyFans has that problem right now. I'm going to skip ahead to this one, just talk about that real quick. OnlyFans, we've all used OnlyFans, right? This whole room, I'm positive. Yeah. The OnlyFans has the same problem, and that's particularly problematic because generally the reason someone has an OnlyFans account as what they call them, creator, is that they're trying to generate revenue off of this. And so sharing their stuff that is supposed to be locked down is theft. You are removing someone's ability to make revenue. We can argue about whether or not piracy affects revenue. That's not a scope for this conversation. But either way, let's call it piracy. You are pirating. You're not allowed to grab these photographs and you're doing it. They've built their interface in such a way that it doesn't allow you to easily right-click, download, do all those things. But you can super easily just go into the back end in your browser and just go find the link that the page loaded up for each photograph, video, whatever it is, and just, I'm showing you how easy it is. You just hit copy link address. That link you can give to anybody. And they'll be able to see and download those pictures, regardless of, they don't even have to have an OnlyFans account, let alone be logged into one. They do not need a valid session token, as long as they have that link address, which I'm not going to talk about the potentiality for brute forcing that link in this talk either. That's an interesting conversation, but those can be easily shared, and then you can just rip all these photos as you want. This is actually a friend of mine's OnlyFans, and I had asked her, because I was working with her on another problem she had, and I asked her like, "Hey, can I use this in a talk? You know, I can not show your face. I can blur it out and everything." And she was actually, "No, actually, you can use it if you link to my OnlyFans." Like the polar opposite situation. So I had to put a QR code there. Her OnlyFans is actually really hilarious. But that was the deal. So that's why there's a QR code there. And I think it should be obvious at this point now, like feel free to take pictures of me, my slides, and do anything and scan the QR codes. Yeah. So anyway, it's that easy. And I'm gonna go back one slide it's like this seems arduous. Like, well, oh, so you're saying I gotta go right click on everything, get the link, paste that somewhere, share that. Like, who's doing that? Well, what's really happening is there are like no end of these sites cropping up that are, we used to have things in the back of the day called site rippers, and you'd have to run sometimes, you know, difficult to figure out program or plugin or something and give it a lot of information you don't know what it's looking for, and run it in your browser and then have storage for all this and then figure out how to send it to somebody. And it was like the average person is not going to figure out how to like run a site ripper. There are these websites now that are like, now we'll do it for you. And we'll incentivize doing it for you. Like if you are one of the people who's ripping things on OnlyFans and providing us with content, we'll allow you access to the content everyone else is ripping. And so what they ask for is like, hey, just give us your session key, or various other things. Sometimes all of these are needed, sometimes none of those, only one of those is needed. Or no, at least two of those are needed. Anyway, they're very explicit on how to get them. Some of them are even like, they have a button that's like, I can't figure this out, do it for me. And it will just go into your browser's backend and steal what it needs and upload it to their servers. And then I really love the two checkboxes on the bottom, which I've blown up on the left, which say, allow an administrator to use my session for debugging and allow the importer to save my session key for auto import. So what's your session key? Your session key is effectively the thing that says, hey, I am a valid logged in user and I am allowed to access my OnlyFans account. Now, what you're doing is you're giving that session key to somebody else who's not you. And then you're trusting these shitty, creepo, disgusting fucks with your session key for like an application, and they're like, oh, hey, we promise we're only gonna use it for the things that we said we'd use it for, and you can trust us. And it's like, what, there's no there's no mechanism for enforcement there. And those are checked by default, of course. And so they're literally just asking people to give them their session keys, something you normally have to do some clickjacking or social engineering or phishing to get out of people. They're just like, hey, can I have your key? And they're like, yeah. It's the equivalent of like, if somebody just like, would you give your cleaning service keys to your house? Like you found a cleaning service, you found somebody who's like, I will clean your house, just mail me your house keys, and then I promise I'll only use them to clean your house. Nobody would do that. And yet, that's exactly what this is doing. And there's so many sites like this. And then what they do is they go and rip everything on OnlyFans that you have access to. And then they try to do a lot more. And then they just sit on those and they just keep using those forever. And I'd put $5 on the fact that regardless of whether those boxes are checked, they're still going to do those things. And those boxes only exist just to give you a little warm fuzzy to make you trust them more. So, of course, there are actual hacks that are going on. And I guess thinking about what's coming, we can still have an argument about whether these are hacks or not. But gonna talk a little bit about APIs. There was a great talk I saw yesterday, and I wrote his name down. I can't remember his name. Somebody shouted out if they remember, but he was talking about OWASP and API security. And he was going through a lot of things that I was like, oh, this is the right audience for this talk. I'm getting cool. Most websites, they're not like what maybe everyone still thinks a website is. This is still what like websites are in my head, because old folks like us grew up in a day when like an entire website was just the page that was loaded, and it was a server, and it just gave you text and images, and you're all set. Most websites are actually they're applications, usually written in JavaScript, something similar, and they're running on a server somewhere, and they have what's called an application programming interface (API). We've all heard of APIs to send and receive information and assets. And those information and assets are, photographs, video, text, session tokens, login credentials, and many of them. I would say this is probably the #1 problem on the internet. There's various sources that kind of conflict a little bit, but most people are agreeing that SQL injection has fallen from first place, and now insecure / misconfigured API is like the #1 problem we are seeing on the internet today. So generally, the way a website works, when you load up onlyfans.com, it actually talks to a bunch of different servers for different reasons. Like your payment transactions go through actually a completely different company's servers. And when you are logging in, that goes through a different server that just verifies you. And that server does nothing else. It's only verifying that you have provided the correct credentials. And then images are coming out of a database server, and videos might come out of a different database server. Some of these servers are owned by the company. Some of the vast majority these days are not owned by the company. They're owned by who? Amazon, Google, Microsoft, right? So like even OnlyFans, which, holy shit, you would think like of all companies, like these guys need to like make sure that they're not using somebody else's computer. They're only using somebody else's computer. OnlyFans is 100% not OnlyFans owned computers. And they're not writing their own payment processing, they're not writing their own credential verification. I mean, sometimes they are, and that's very fun because you should never write your own encryption and authentication mechanisms because you don't know how. Don't tell me you know how because you don't know how. And every now and then I found somebody who wants to tell me they know how and they were wrong, and it's a real exciting day. But that exists out there. But most of the time they're using somebody else's stuff, which they don't verify either. And they're expected to integrate somebody else's stuff in the right way. So now, you ever look at someone else's code, even if you understand that language and you're like, what the hell is going on in here? That's what integrating someone else's API is like into your stuff. They'll give you a documentation they might as well have like printed it upside down because you're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, this is how you integrate it. Please don't ever ask support anything because we don't have API support. We just have a knowledge base that's full of the same like Sanskrit information. And you're like, okay. And then you get it working and you're like, okay, I guess I did it right. Okay, cool. We're not going to touch this anymore, and we are not going to do a security assessment on any of this because that costs money, and I like having money, so we're all set. And so that's what happens. And so you end up with these situations where, like, instead of going through the website and asking the website and asking onlyfans.com/whatever for the things I'm looking for, forget that. Why don't I just go to the database server up in the cloud and ask it directly? Because what do I want? I don't want the splash page for onlyfans.com. I want nudie pictures. So I'm going to go to the box with all the nudie pictures and I'm going to go, hey, can I have nudie pictures, please? And sometimes that box goes, oh yeah, cool. Here you go. And sometimes the box goes, I don't know, man, are you cool? And then you can provide it with like stuff that like anybody can get. Like sometimes it just wants a username. And then it goes, oh yeah, oh, there you are. Yeah, cool, here you go. Like the broken authentication is like OWASP's #2 problem on the internet right now. And that's what like broken API authentication. So like not non-existent, but yes. Shout it louder. Dan Burahana? There you go. That's who gave that talk. Go back and watch it on the YouTubes when they post it. It was great because it talks about a lot of this so that I don't have to talk a lot about it. But the only thing you gotta know is that a lot of times you can just go to the servers that serve the things you want and just ask them directly. And with a little bit of jiggling, they're probably gonna be like, yeah, here you go, it's cool. So that happens a ton. We do have that session token theft that happens a lot. I think I'm gonna be able to get through this. We do have the session token theft, happens all the time. And this actually was a huge problem. Do you guys remember, what was it, like last year, there was like a ton of massive YouTubers that all got their accounts hacked and they got their channels taken over that started just like putting out like spam videos for trash things to buy. And it was like, how, what, why is Linus Tech Tips got hit with this? Like massive account. It's okay to watch Linus Tech Tips. His account's really cool. He breaks stuff down in a way that's just gets you the information fast. Don't be embarrassed that you watch that. I've come across so many people like, no, man, I watch it too. It's cool. I get it. It's like, yeah, it's a good channel. So what had happened was through various like phishing attacks, Hackers, so if you don't know, this is how a session token is made. You want to connect to a server and tell it who you are. You provide it your credentials, whatever that might be, username, password, et cetera, et cetera. The server goes, okay, cool. And now to make sure I don't have to ask you for your username and password and MFA token every freaking time you make a single request to this website, I'm going to give you back a cookie. And a cookie, it's like your work badge. So you know when you go to an office and first you have to give them your ID and then they give you a work badge, show you you don't have to pull your ID out every time you go to work. You just flash a badge. That's what it does. It gives you your work badge. That's your session cookie. And that has an expiration, just like your work badge does. It's something the server can revoke. It's something you can revoke. How do you revoke it? You log out. But then that cookie just sits in your browser so that every time your browser needs to request something from that site, it sends that cookie off. So anybody else who can get into your computer and into your browser can steal that session token and just be you, because they come in and they're like, here's my work badge. And the server goes, good to see you again, Joe, and lets you in. So what's happening is like coming into your computer and they're just like yoinking your cookies. And you're like, hey, and then and you don't know what happened either. You don't know what happened because your stuff still continues to work. Multiple people can use the same session token by design. And so that was a huge problem. I think it comes up here. No, where'd that go? There was a little, whatever. Oh, it's down there. Anyway, I had a news article on the Linus Tech Tips issue and a bunch of other stuff, but y'all know what happened. So it happens. I just put it out of frame. So yeah, I talked about this. This is how it's happening. It's usually phishing. Sometimes it requires no user interaction. Sometimes it is in fact a malicious website that's able to mimic being the other server and request that session token from your browser, and your browser goes, yep, that's for you, here you go. So you don't often know it's happening or has ever happened. So don't think that like your computer is gonna act weird because you got a virus, because someone hacked you. No, like malicious attackers want to make sure they're not caught. And what's the number one way to get caught is to draw attention to the fact that you did something. So all good attacks do not draw attention to the fact that anything happened and everything keeps working as it always had, and you think everything's fine. Other hacks, so rats are really going away. This was the old webcam access thing. They'd install a tool on your computer and it would monitor everything really. And this went on for like 40 years. But it would, like, what they were really doing a lot of the time was they would take all your session tokens, all your passwords and crap. They would dump your password vault. They would even just like grab your password vault and try to crack it offline. But they would also turn your webcam on and just watch you and take, and this is really affecting like people who lived in small spaces, like college kids who lived in dorms where you have to get undressed in front of your computer because you only have one room to yourself. And then they would like post these videos online, or you've all probably seen the scam email that's like, hey, I have turned your webcam on while you were doing something particularly untowards. And I'm going to send this to your family unless you give me 1 million Bitcoins. And that's what the rats were, because that was actually a thing that was happening for a long time. But now all they're doing is just saying they've done it, and they haven't actually done it. There's not a webcam in existence now that does not have an LED that's on it that is in line with the power. So it's not something that can be like disabled in software. If you got an LED on your webcam, if that webcam is powered on, that light must turn on, because if that chain is broken, the power never gets to the webcam. So if you are doing the webcam cover thing, make sure you are not covering up the LED when you put that cover on, because you may be interested to find that it's still, like, you should still care if it's on and covered and you didn't turn it on. That's still a concerning situation, so you want to be alerted to that. Compromised communication, we're talking backdoors here, stuff that's been backdoored or literally front doored, where like somebody else is accessing your communication apps without you knowing, and they're not changing or deleting anything, so everything always looks fine, but there's somebody else inside the house also reading your shit. And then, like, yeah, the backdoored applications which intentionally are also siphoning off information and sending it somewhere. This is where we're seeing, that's what happened to a lot of supply chain attacks. We're seeing really good, incredibly useful, very beneficial libraries being used in software development that every once in a while will take your session tokens and passwords and send them off to the dude who made the library so that he can sell them and make a little bit of money for all the work he puts into this free library that every corporation on the planet uses. And it doesn't happen every time. It happens like once every 1,000 times the library is called, or once every 3 months, and it only does it once. So it's like impossible to see happening. And that's a huge problem in supply chain right now. So let's talk about what we can do all this stuff. To quote Chris Carless, nothing, I got no idea. That's not true. So here's the things I think we do know, like use a good password manager. We started hearing like the LastPass, the boo LastPass going around. There was a joke a few years ago. Who remembers the infomercials for the password manager book when it's like, keep all your passwords safe in this book. And everybody laughed at it and they're like, are you kidding me? They're telling people to write these things down in this book. What's the problem? Just keep it down. Yeah. 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 What's the problem with writing your passwords down in that book that you keep inside your house? Now, if you're taking that book everywhere with you and you might accidentally leave it in a cafe or something, yeah, that's a big problem. But like if somebody has broken into your house, oh, Better Call Saul. That was actually in one of the final episodes of Better Call Saul when he breaks into the day trader's house and goes through his whole desk and he finds his passwords written down in there. Like if that's your threat model, well, then don't use the book. But also like, I have people that you got to talk to somebody above me I can recommend to you. Your bank and your password manager passwords should be long, complex, and memorized and never digitally stored anywhere. Those are the two you will always need. That's so like, okay, I have lost all ability to use this or that. And I need, what are the two things you will always absolutely need to be able to get to in emergencies? Your bank, because if you need money, and then your password manager to get the rest of your passwords. Those are things you should have in your head. How the hell am I supposed to do that? Welcome to Security Awareness 101. Make it a sentence, long sentence. Hello, my name is Johnny Christmas. And then add in your commas and apostrophes and quotes around it and make some numbers if you want, if you just remember what those numbers are. That's a really long, complex password, especially put in spaces in that password. Nobody who cracks passwords remembers to put spaces in the potential key space. It's a great way to throw people off. Just put a space in your password. Yeah, so make sure those two are memorized in your head because that also means they're never gonna leak anywhere. They will never be stolen because they're in your brain. Well, they won't be stolen in a timeline that I can perceive, but who knows what happens if we get some Johnny Mnemonic things happening in the next 5 years. Yeah, you know all these things. I'm not gonna linger on it. The reality, it's hard to convey this, right? Because it comes off as victim shaming, right? This is the reality. Operate with a conscious understanding that digital privacy is non-existent. Make sure that what you're doing, whatever you're doing, that you're okay if that information got out. Because it might. Look, we just look at the stats and there's a good chance it might. If you're not okay with that, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Because we're talking about things that never have to happen. These are things you never have to do, sharing these intimate things. Now you'd want to, it's great. It can be great for a healthy relationship and you should share intimate things with your partners. Fuck yeah. Just, if you're going to do it in this manner, make sure that you're doing it in such a way that you are mentally okay with the fact that they might get out and you're just gonna be willing to deal with it. Do the other things I said here, and I'm gonna wrap up real quick for you guys. There was a particularly famous person whose name I won't mention, even though she was very open about it. I'm not gonna draw further attention to it, but she had all of her pictures get leaked by an angry ex who put it on a revenge board site, and because she was particularly famous, they went around real fast. And then she was like, you know what, fuck it. Like she just stood back, she got overwhelmed and then just broke down and said, you know what? What's going on here? Like what's actually the problem? Like, yeah, that's what I look like naked. It's just a fucking body. Like, yes, that's what people look like. Who gives a shit? And then what she did is she just posted the rest of her pictures and she's like, there they are. Go get them and go nuts. And what happened is because now they were like freely available, nobody cared anymore. And the whole thing just went away, like didn't give a shit. And she was like, really? Like now, like my only regret is that like maybe I would have taken some better pictures, to be honest, because those are not flattering. But like, you know what? That's what people look like. And you know what? That's what a lot of people look like. What are we doing? And a lot of this revenge porn and crap and all that comes down to the fact that we're just like so sexually repressed, and not just as a culture in America, but like by law in a lot of cases that like, that's creating the problem. If you look at like every culture where like spousal abuse is through the roof, it's the same cultures where like pornography is like severely restricted or banned, or sexuality is severely repressed. And that's where you start seeing like huge spikes in like abuse and murder of spouses and things like that. So we're creating our own problem, but that's outside of the scope of this conversation. Do the things that I told you to do earlier. They're all right up there. Verify who you're talking to. just make sure real quick, because like, you know, if you do inherently trust that person with your life, because we're talking about your life here. We're talking about the potential destruction of your life in certain cases, right? If certain things got out, make sure you're talking to the right person once in a while and have that conversation to go, hey, every once in a while, I'm just gonna ask you to verify some things just so we can be safe. And a partner you trust with this information should go, good idea, cool, let's do it. Yeah, set your timers on your messages. Obscure your face, which can be fun. This is getting real huge. VTubers, this is getting huge on the porn sites too, like literally using AI to make yourself look different. My friend Jacku actually, so Snapchat had a great snap camera application that was used to do this on the your webcams, and they got rid of it. And the sex work industry freaked out because so many people were using this to obscure their faces, many of whom live in countries where being a sex worker is punishable by death. But this is also the only way they made able to figure out how to make money to feed their kids because women aren't allowed to have real jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so they had to do this, and now Snapchat was just like, never mind. And so they freaked out, and so my friend Jacku ripped everything, reversed the server, figured out how to rehost it, stole all the lenses possible, rehosted it all, and made a how-to on how to patch the application to work with his servers and how to keep using it in spite of the fact that SnapCam didn't think it was important for anybody. That's a QR code to go see how that works if you're particularly interested. Please do that. Please give him a tip. He does all of this for free out of the goodness of his heart. Yes, Robert? Juggalo, so we're not talking about facial recognition, we're talking about facial obscurity. So yeah, Juggalo makeup is great for hiding from facial recognition, but it's still sometimes easy to be like, oh, well, that's Robert in Juggalo makeup. And we're trying to avoid the that's Robert part of the situation. But let's test it, Robert. I want to see you in Juggalo makeup. So thank you. Let me go a few minutes over. There's my link tree. Check out burbsec.com if you want to join our Discord and hang out with a bunch of people. Burbsec team just won the casino CTF last night. If you're wondering who did that, give it up for Mark. You want to stand up? Mark got a black badge. You'll see him on stage tomorrow. Team Burbsec. Thanks, guys. You can hang out with us on our Discord if you want. There's my link tree. There's my, you know how the crap works. Thank you. And if you want to talk about any of this, I'll be around for a little bit.